And we're now live. Hello and welcome. You're very welcome to. Oh, we're now live.
Hello. Where in the world?
Where in the world? Hello, and you're very welcome to Broadsheet on the Telly. My name is John Preposterous Ryan. Hello to especially Broadsheet commenters and readers and even the trolls. I have a couple of people I want to say hello to, but I want to say, firstly, the panel. In Longford, Stephen Garland. The last time we saw him, he looked like Dr. Evil. He now looks like
James Bond.
After take that. And in Portugal, we have Luke Brennan, who was off the panel for the last couple of weeks or last week. He had an extremely lame excuse that he might share with us later. From the sheet, Olga Cronin.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
And celebrity accountant, Cork born but Dublin based, Vanessa Foran.
Hi, everyone.
And I just want to say a quick hello to a few people. Legal coffee drinker, Bernie, Clampers Outside, who got married last weekend and is a Broadsheet commenter of, I think, maybe right since the start. He began, I think, as a real troll against us, and then, slowly the rabid dog became so Clampers anyway got married. So Vanessa, Olga, you're very familiar with Clampers, aren't you?
Yes. Congratulations, Clampers.
Okay.
Neil. Hi, Neil.
Lads. How are you getting on?
How are you doing?
Hello, Neil.
Neil's in bed.
He's laid back. Okay. And thank you.
I was pretty sure Neil was like just getting ready to be launched into space or something.
I am, yeah. I'm not really in Spain after all.
No.
Actually, Luke is in Portugal. Neil, you're in Spain.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Spain are you?
I can't tell you that, or the authorities will kick me door in. I'm in the Costa Blanca region, which is southeast.
Oh my God!
Well, I have to say, you look very, very well. I mean, you look tanned and rested.
There you go. That's all you need in life: a bit of tan and a bit of rest. Is that right, Luke?
Well, I think Neil. I think you really did.
Oh dear.
Holiday, and you got Sadie over there. Okay, Sadie is.
I did. That's why I'm in this dark in the corner, so that she can't hear me on this. So I'm hiding the other part of the house.
Okay, I have a street party outside where they're playing Euro music. So if you hear music, that's the party outside. And just want a big thank you to Vera Toomey for last week. Vera joined us for the first hour of the show, and I genuinely thought it was fantastic. And a big thank you to her. And while I'm on that subject, an email came into Broadsheet this evening, and it's from Kenny Tynan, and he's had the revenue have come around and seized his cannabis oil bottles, his THC-based medicine, this afternoon. He went over. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2015. And after recurrence, he decided to travel to Spain to get the cannabis oil, and came back. And then this afternoon, it's unclear how they knew he had the oil, but they knew, and they took it off him this afternoon. And,
how did they do that? How did they do that?
When you say revenue, John, do you mean customs and excise took it?
Well, all I have really is it was emailed from a friend of his. So, dear X at the revenue, regarding the telephone conversation between myself and Mr. X of revenue about the seizure of my THC-based medicine on 18th of April, I wish to have my medicine returned on the following grounds. I'm wondering if it was stopped at the airport, but I'll get some more
It
details.
sounds like they're making an example of him.
Yeah, it does.
I wonder if we get a post up in the morning. If he wants to get in touch, we can
Oh
put
yeah. I was working on a post actually just before we started, so it was like it just seemed it's kind of tied in with the Vera thing. So we'll have it up anyway tomorrow.
Vera had stuff taken off her as well. I think was that on entry. So at customs,
At Dublin, yeah.
Right.
I think she was sort of publicly sort of stating.
Right. That's what I
carrying
thought. Yeah.
But I think it would be unusual for them to seize it at the airport, unless I don't know. Anyway, there's a level of pettiness around this issue around the cannabis oil that seems
absolutely,
really they're hurting. Either it's pressure from big pharma on revenue or whomever is involved. So I wanted to sort of abdicate in terms of the Eighth Amendment, in terms of sort of long discussions about it, and I was hoping that maybe next week Olga could present a show around the Eighth Amendment, and maybe the next week do a pro-life, do a pro-choice. But today, I mean, it's the last Thursday of the month, so it's a little bit. We sort of tend to be a little bit lighter on the last Thursday of the month because some people get paid, and they're probably drinking and whatever, and just having a good time. But I did want to discuss briefly the Eighth Amendment's the campaign, the advertise, the billboard, the posters campaign on both sides. I mean, it's probably been talked to death, but there's a new one out today with the baby on it, and more sort of very provocative version of the truth, let's say. I just want to, maybe Vanessa, would you have an opinion on the tactics of pro-life, or the tactics even of pro-choice?
Well, I suppose the pro-life side are using the tactics they used 35 years ago and again in 92, 93. It's pornographic and it's very graphic, but I saw a poster actually today or yesterday, and it was on for abortions up to 6 months. Like, let me just make this clear. This isn't about abortion. This is just about removing an amendment in the Constitution.
Yeah, they're.
I know the 12-week is following up. They legislate for that is the plan, but you're asked to vote on removing a line in the Constitution. You're not being asked to look at babies and say this is what's going to happen, or and like I've always viewed this about, it's not a choice, it's a decision. You make a decision, and it's a decision between the patient and their medical team, or the people she chooses to share it with. It's a decision, and this constant. I suppose I refer to as pornographic, but the overselling of, sort of Anne Geddes babies, and the word fake news doesn't even spring to mind. It's just absurd, the lengths they're going to just to give a message. They know they're not right. They know they are wrong, but they just want to get their way. I think people need to know they just want to get their own way.
Yeah,
Vanessa, isn't it an intentional sort of muddying of the waters? That's really what's going on.
Yes.
But Vanessa, can I just stop you there about their motivation? I think well, their tactics are definitely like they're taking the low road. That's for sure, and their tactics are, obscene, and as you say, in some parts, the crushed fetus, the blood, and then the 12-week scan. That's not a 12-week scan. All those aspects of it, but I think their motivation is completely, in most cases, 100% pure, not motivated by anything other than their true belief that this is, in more extreme cases, murder, I guess.
Yes, but then why don't they have faith in their own message? If they were true believers and they absolutely stood up behind it and their faith was, they were so confident in their position and that they were willing to fight and go out door to door and climb ladders and put posters up, John. Why aren't they truthful about it? Why are they hiring actors to pretend they're theatre nurses?
Well, it
No,
wasn't an
seriously.
actor. It was somebody who had worked in a hospital, but it's not clear what position they had in the hospital.
Okay.
His whole
Why,
was exposed
John?
early.
John, okay, I get that, and okay, I'll take that back.
Sorry.
If they are so certain that their position is right, and they're going out to force the vote or get the vote out, why do they have to resort to such false,
I think because they're coming
overdone tactics?
Well, they're coming from behind for a start, and I think there's enough don't knows who they feel will be won't give it as much of a consideration as perhaps you would, Vanessa, and would see most of that.
They're chasing the undecideds. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
But my point is, if they're so sure their message is right, if they're so sure that this is wrong and that abortion is wrong and it's murder, and as Justin Barrett was saying, that they should a girl that has an abortion should do 14 years and the person that conducts the procedure should be given a life sentence. If they're so sure about that, why do you have to have this absurd messages on their posters, on their leaflets? Why is there a school leaver on Grafton Street pretending she's a midwife saying she knows what abortion really is?
Well,
seriously, if they're so honest about it.
Can I answer the question? Because I think they are in a big dilemma. They've got a big quandary here, because in the cases of rape and fatal fetal abnormality, there's a humane position which I think most, for instance, if it was one of their daughters who had been raped, that's the ultimate question to them. I mean, it's a horrible question, but it has to be asked. I mean, ultimately, what would they do? And it's in those areas, those marginal areas, that they're very, very weak, I think. So what have they done? They've used that, because the 6-month thing is about rape and fatal fetal abnormality. I mean, it's a very, very extreme cases. But
yeah.
They've used that, where they're very weak on, as their as a battering ram for the don't knows. What I would say is that there's a real temptation now for the pro-choice to get to go low, I guess, because these guys are getting the attention. But I would caution that. Sorry, Vanessa, did you want to say something else? Sorry.
I actually don't think there's a need for pro-choice side to go low, because the pro-choice side is not offering any sort of extreme, messaging. They're making it about choice. They're making it about the decision to be left to the pregnant woman.
Yeah, but
they're not taking pictures of rape victims or sort of depicting a rape victim. Now, I personally thought they couldn't go any lower with the picture of or a depiction of a rape victim saying she needs a hug, not an abortion type messaging. I really didn't think they could go any lower than that, but they did.
Yeah.
So I don't see the pro-choice side needing to go low. I think their message is very clear. It's let people make their own decisions.
Yeah,
they're not saying abortion's for everybody. They're not saying right to access abortion. They're basically saying it's very simple. Give people the choice. And one of the best messages out there at the moment is, for a private matter, needs public help or public support.
Well,
and that's all they need to keep going. Keep the canvas out, keep the message going, right up until the gates of the Dublin Castle.
Okay. I think that the problem with the pro-choice side, as much as that dilemma that the pro-life side are facing, is the aspect of Down syndrome and I would say that would be a big one, actually. That is, I mean, they've already used that in terms of the billboard campaign. Actually, Olga, I'm not even too sure where you stand. I mean, are you pro-life, pro-choice?
Oh, pro-choice. I thought you would have known that. Pro-choice. I tend to. Sorry.
No, I didn't want to assume it.
Oh yeah, no, pro-choice. But I mean, I tend to kind of ignore an awful lot of the ad campaigns from the pro-life side, to be honest. And I think anyone who has their mind made up does, actually. But
have you friends who don't know?
Do I have friends who don't know? I don't think so.
Okay. Have you friends who may vote to keep
it? No, I think most of my friends would vote repeal. Yeah, they'll vote yes. I think, yeah, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head who's going to vote the other way. So yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. They are the pro-life side are going after the don't knows and the Down syndrome, the 6 months. That's what they're using. I'm not sure when you say, John, that the pro-choice side, that the temptation would be to go low. How do you mean? What could they do?
Well, I'm saying that the pro-life side have gone very low, I think, as Vanessa said. But can I just sort of say that the pro-life side there are fringe groups who are, the fetus photographs outside the Leinster House and stuff. That's, I don't think, sanctioned by Save the A officially. Vanessa's giving me a sort of a wry smile, but I just want to sort of be as fair as possible to them, because I do think they're sincerely motivated.
Yeah, I think that's their honestly held view, and I mean, I think like for them, it's life starts at this point, and to take it, they that's what they see it as, murder or death. They see that they're it's crossing a boundary that shouldn't be crossed, and that's just their view. And But
then again, they can't. Sorry, I don't want to.
No, go ahead.
I do want to go to Stephen, because I want to say that Stephen, you look fantastic.
I'll give you a kind of devil's advocate view on the whole issue. And the lexicon and the framing of this referendum, I find completely confusing. My wife, who's Brazilian, who's not from Ireland, and she doesn't, and because she has to understand you're voting to take and remove an amendment out of the Constitution. This is and you see, yes, no, yes. Yes sounds like yes, we're going to allow abortion. No sounds no, we're not going to allow abortion. We're here talking, and it's all pro-life and pro-choice. What is this lexicon? It's like this is. I honestly think that a lot of people are going to vote not the way they intended. I really honestly do.
Do you mind if I jump in there, John? Do you remember the voting the very first time this came around? It was deliberately worded, so convoluted. If you said no, you were supporting it.
Yes.
And if you said, it was deliberately convoluted. Do you remember the vote we had where there was the 3 options? Yes to abortion, or to information, or to access to travel. And was that the one in the 90s? And one of those was deliberately convoluted, that if you said no, you were actually saying yes, sir. Yeah. So it was absurd for us as well, 35 years ago and 20 years ago. So
correct me if I'm wrong here, but what we're voting for is we're going to
remove it. Just remove it. Yeah.
To remove it is a choice, but then it's been handed over to the Parliament.
Which is exactly where it should have always been. We elect them to do it, get them to do a bit of work,
Right, but we're still being asked in a referendum to kind of pass something that's been so divisive for so long. I can't believe it, 35 years later. And it's like, what? And it's still not framed correctly. That is a fact. This lexicon, pro-choice, pro no, yes, no. It's really not been framed well, and then you're going to hand it over to the politicians anyway. And the politicians, the Fianna Fáil politicians, are not even they don't even want to give the choice to people in a referendum. They don't even want to allow a referendum.
Yeah, but then they have to campaign. I mean, this is what I was talking about in terms of this needs its own show, and it needs a show presented by Olga, but just featuring women, because I have to say, with the greatest respect, if I was a woman, I wouldn't allow men to vote on this bloody issue. This is absolutely none of their.
That's controversial. Careful now, John.
No, I see, John. I would disagree there. I would disagree there. I think this is a community issue. I think it's a citizenry issue.
Yeah, Bad Boy and Cillian Murphy are up to date, giving it socks. How we all.
I actually strongly disagree with the viewpoint that it's a women's issue.
Well, what I'm saying is that
I think it's an equality issue.
Okay, well, whatever identity you want to give it, Vanessa, what I would say is that if we got pregnant, if men got pregnant,
if you had a womb,
oh Jesus, we'd be extinct. We'd be extinct.
we would have a Mary Stopes next to every betting shop, and serious, and we wouldn't allow women to have any.
You'd have full pay maternity leave for 12 months.
But to think that. Vanessa, you would have any say over what I would do with my body is just...
I know. And this is often what I've often said to people that have this argument with me about being for pro-choice,
pro what? For what?
Pro yes. Sorry, we're messing there. I'm actually going to say. I said, how about having compulsory vasectomies?
Okay, I forgot that it was the last Thursday of the month. You've had your...
We're tangenting.
What? Sorry, what did John say?
I'm joking. I said I forgot that it was the last Thursday of the month. You've had your first gin already.
No, I haven't. I haven't been drinking at all.
I know, but it's a running joke.
I know, yeah, you love that. You love okay. No, honestly, viewers, I haven't. This is fizzy water.
Now, thank you, Neil. To lighten the mood, what's in the cinema in Spain this weekend?
I've no idea. My head's been deep in the sandcastles, so I actually don't have a roundup of what's in the movies this week.
How about the weather?
I do have some TV news because to little fanfare, Westworld has returned to online screens. Anyway, it's not on Netflix yet because it's a HBO show, which is kind of in competition with Netflix. Right, but I enjoyed the first season. It was a great mystery throughout. There's a lot of speculation online as to, where it was all going to end up, and then the spoilers and all the rest. But the initial feedback on it is very good. There is a mystery that runs through this as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Okay. But again, avoid those spoilers online. And the other big movie that's coming soon, I don't have a release date on it yet, is the Avengers Infinity War, which is another big pile of Marvel shite that's going to do billions in the box office. Okay. And the spoiler-free reviews are very, very good. But of course, being away with all those broadsheet invites to the premieres and preview screenings, I've been unable to get to them all this week. So we'll just have to wait till next week.
Okay.
When is Cannes? Can we do an outside podcast at Cannes?
Yeah, well, I reckon myself and Luke are pretty close to Cannes at the moment. We could take a spin up there and ask around.
It's just as
Perhaps
easy.
It's live stream.
Just as easy for us to get there, isn't that right, Olga?
Not a bother.
Loads of new ferries.
I got to. Sorry, don't want to interrupt you there, Neil. You've run out of movies anyway, haven't you? No.
I know. I don't. I've been on the jolly since last week. When you were all smoking your heads off last week, I was bringing a 6-month-old away. So no, I haven't a clue what's out this weekend.
I think looking at you now, I think I'm genuinely going to say you're overworked.
I am very overworked
and oversunned.
Because you look like you look like Stephen before his stem cells.
Oh, John.
Well, you look great now. You look.
I didn't have a quiff,
It's the angle. You see, I'm low tech tonight because I'm on an iPad in the corner of a room in the house, so I'm very low tech tonight. Revealing
your nostrils.
I just wanted to say.
I shaved them earlier.
I wanted to say a big thank you also to last week, Niall Nelligan from the law department at DIT, who helped out on the discussion about cannabis. And also, where's Johnny Keenan?
Speaking of
Speaking of which, where is Johnny? Anybody? If Johnny's there out there,
Don't look at me. I don't know where he is.
okay.
He must have. Did he just go
Vanessa's
missing after
sitting on him.
420?
Yeah,
Did he even come back from the 420 march?
Well, I haven't spoken. I haven't sort of made contact since 420. I said that Shayna was going to go down. And
I have, and he's alive and well, and
yeah, is
don't
he
know where he is tonight. Yeah.
okay?
He's,
Well,
yeah, he's on his next thing for the moment.
okay. Well, Johnny, if you're out there, please join us anytime between now and midnight. So I thank Niall. Niall Nelligan, who's from Dublin Institute of Technology, kind of Boffin, Egghead, but he's not pro weed, but he's pro reform of the law in this area. So I thought it was actually quite a good discussion. You missed a good chat, Luke.
Well, he's down there. Luke is down there in Portugal, where they've got everything decriminalized, and it's all systems go.
That's why there's a delayed reaction whenever we ask them.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, like I was saying to you before that they had such a significant drug problem here that they didn't have the money to fight it, so they sort of said, okay, well, let's see it as a sort of social issue, and rather than sort of criminalizing it, and realize that particularly the heroin sort of epidemic they had here. I mean, I can't remember what it was. It was crazy. 1 in 12 people sort of had a heroin addiction, and it got completely out of hand. So they just said, let's decriminalize everything, and made all sorts of of the problem, including trying to sort of destigmatize sort of people who had these issues, including trying to develop work for the people. There's a lot of, even if you're trying to sort of furnish a house around here, there's a lot of social enterprises which are staffed by a lot of sort of drug users who refurbish furniture and that sort of thing. So they've really gone deep into sort of solving the problem, and
I think that's their biggest achievement, is the destigmatization of the addict, and that's the fundamental of the entire success of the Portuguese model, I think, and it makes sense. And I don't know why it's not applied as readily or as quickly elsewhere in Europe. I mean, we're talking about European countries, so why?
I have to say the Irish attitude, or just generally. The attitude when we have, when we talk about addicts on the side or anything like that, it's calmed down a little bit in the last year or so. But them and addicts and travelers just seem to get just absolute abuse on the site, or you need to moderate the threads about addicts. So our attitudes are very, very.
Well, I'm not sure if it's. I mean, Portuguese people are very friendly generally, so it's hard to work out. But there are sort of people, with sort of drug issues around, but they're all very friendly, I've never had any sort of hostility from them, or anything like that. It's obviously very sad, but
I find Irish culture is inherently harder, and I think it's possibly a climatic thing. But people, because of rain, people are more uptight here. So when you stick an addiction on top of that, then it means that your addicts are more uptight, and there's a lot of abuse goes on the streets it's there, it's visual, and they're kind of begging. You don't give money, you're likely to get spat on, and this is playing out every day in Dublin. Every day I've been up in Dublin, I've seen somebody being spat on and things like this, and but I think that. While in Portugal, Spain, and these different countries, the addicts are less aggressive. I think it's something to do. I think it's climatic, to be honest.
It's just something. I think it's the weather. There is an intolerance here. Yeah.
Yeah, they are sick in that state if they're spitting on people. I mean, they are actually sort of.
Sure, but there's something inherently culturally harder about the attitudes. that
Oh, the
turn
attitude toward them, or
towards them and reciprocated from them. So I think it's a reciprocated situation, but the whole thing is a more uptight atmosphere. And I've been and lived in a few countries, even in Rio. Like the streets are full of crack addicts. I've never seen, and you have famous areas in Sao Paulo and Rio, Cracolandias, and they're just wall to wall crack addicts and crack problems. But they're not as aggressive. And a crack addict can, they can just lie down and go to sleep on the street. There's not because the weather's not bad. But everybody's a little bit more uptight in these kinds of cultures. That's what I see. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it the case that there are many like historical before heroin became, the sort of drug that took over the UK in the 80s? There was many people, many writers that sort of lived a very happy, sort of fruitful life while being heroin addicts.
Sure.
It doesn't go hand in hand, that there has to be any sort of violence or, sort of any abusive behavior. But like, I think the point you're making is a good one, that it's kind of, particularly in Ireland, I feel that it's sort of, society gives up on them and they sort of give up on society. It's like I say, it's a reciprocal thing. You sort of that's, when people get that low, they're and they feel, well, when they're also made feel that low, they sort of tend to, act out.
Sorry, Vanessa, did you want to?
No. Right.
Actually, just before we go off, it was a subject we left behind, but the photograph behind you, could you explain that, Vanessa?
Sorry, that is a still that has come out of. You hosted a clip from Comedy Central yesterday, I think, John.
Yeah.
On the sheet. It was John Moynes is in it.
For a second.
And handsome man he is.
Yes.
And
Parnellian. With the beard.
Yeah. I didn't try. Yeah, well done, well spotted. And I suppose it's basically Jim Jeffries and featuring Tara Neil's biggest fan is him. She's in dialogue with Jeffries throughout it. Anyway, they do a segment of this video with Justin Barrett, who's head of the Irish National Party. And I don't know anyone else that's a member of the Irish National Party other than this man, Justin Barrett.
Yeah.
And okay, no, they did ham him up a bit. What was that, John?
I think they have other members. I mean, I think by law they have to have other members.
Well, I don't know who they are.
Otherwise,
well, I mean, I've never seen any of them run for election. Not around here, anyway. Dublin South Central, Dublin West, you have tickets in front of you in the ballot box that go into double digits, So look, I'm going off the point. But this guy, Justin, anyway, they they featured him in this clip, and he was being interviewed. Well, there was a bit of a wind-up going in the guy picking them up at the airport and bringing them to the studio for the interview with Jim Jeffries. And your man's face, I suppose, that was the comedy side of it. And then Jim Jeffries was doing a one-to-one with him on camera, and he was the stuff this guy Justin Barrett came out with was just totally absurd, like the death penalty. Jesus, I mean,
what did he say?
I mean,
he said that.
Yeah, I mean, who in this day and age in Ireland would start discussing the death penalty?
Well, he believes it's murder. You see,
Yeah.
This is probably what's a foretaste of what might happen if, no matter how, if the yes vote is carried, there will be pickets outside whatever clinic has to look after the terminations.
I just think they'll walk away. But anyway, this picture behind me is the smaller guy is Justin Barrett. Actually, I'm told he's an accountant. Is that true?
He's I'm not too sure. He's not a big a celebrity accountant as you, anyway. I mean, he's more of a
No, but I
celebrity
just
in real life.
this circulated today with Jeffries, and he's got like, it looks like he's got horns on his head. He can't see it. So maybe you can put it up on underneath the
Neil
video.
Neil could share it if you can find the photograph.
No,
Yeah.
I'm low tech tonight. I've zero functionality. Sorry, guys.
Spain.
Oh,
Well,
how do you share, Neil? Neil, send me a few text messages and I'll see if I can share it.
Click the screen share button.
Oh, all right. I'll have to open it up here. Sorry, folks.
Not at all. Stephen, just to get off the subject of stem cells, you were going to tell that story about Mel Gibson and Joe Rogan. Had you told this before on the show?
No, but this is actually another stem cell story. So I'll never get off this, you know. No, what it was you were talking about stem cells, and it's kind of the future of medicine is stem cells, and it was kind of it had its biggest moment. It's kind of genie's is getting out of the bottle almost every month. There's different people using it to be treated for everything. There are about 5 or 6 centers in the world that do it. Russia, Singapore. They don't really do it in areas that the FDA are basically blocking it all over the place. And the really interesting place that does umbilical stem cells is in Panama. And that's the one that comes up is in the Joe Rogan podcast with Mel Gibson. So Mel Gibson has been down to Joe Rogan, as you know, he's a WWF, not WWF, or MMA fighter, and so he's been down there for getting kind of injections to fix his multiple injuries that keep on popping up, and it's become a bit of it's a muscle fix, you know. And so you go down, you get your for everything from knee replacements, all kinds of joints and things. It's the future, and the thing that they do in Panama is that there was always an ethical issue around fetal stem cells, and that could never really be allowed ethically. And so what they're doing in Panama is umbilical cords. So people are donating their umbilical cord, and these guys in Panama are able to take out the vital things inside the umbilical cord and turn those stem cells into a kind of cure-all kind of potion, not a potion, but an injection. and because the reason of the zenith, let's say, of stem cells is the fetal one, because it's when it's when everything is forming, all the genetics within the stem cell is forming. So umbilical is the next best thing. And is there anything really unethical about kind of using something that is discarded after every single childbirth in the world?
Without their permission with their permission.
Yeah, with the person can, just like you would donate any organ when you die or whatever, but it's something that you can donate.
Yeah, but I think there's a huge black market now for organ harvesting and whatnot in the third world. But anyway, that's probably another
area.
Work. But it's also like it's extremely effective for your condition. You found, Stephen, but why would people like Mel Gibson be taking it? They're taking it just to get younger.
Yeah, his father is the kind of focus of the ridiculous. He becomes the ridiculous focus of that podcast, because Mel is kind of giving it a little bit of, yeah, you want to see my dad? He's 97 and he's still giving it socks down the home, with and what he's talking about giving it socks is kind of in a, he's still performing in a sexual manner.
Oh,
and yeah, it's good crack. And yeah, Mel, and he cannot resist kind of dropping it in 3 or 4 times into that 50-minute podcast about how
he's kind of awful. Sorry,
how proficient his dad has become at 97. He's been reawoken by the stem cell treatment.
So you must feel, you love that stem cell. So I mean, you've got to go on Indigo and GoFundMe, and I mean, He just has to put out another movie.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's
But they're just doing it for pure, well, vanity and
no muscular, and there's lots of things. Like what they're getting fixed is you get old and the muscles are getting tired and getting messed up, and you have injuries. And like I said, Joe Rogan, he's MMA, and so that's who he is. And he's been down. He's had stem cell injections.
McGregor would have them, wouldn't he?
I'd say he would go for them.
Yeah,
It's become a thing, you know, for injuries of all kinds. That's what I'm saying. And it's only the FDA that are the reason that they're going, that these are all American doctors, it's American clinic, it's American everything, but they're all down in Panama doing this. And why are they down there? Because the FDA are standing in the way of everything. And why are they doing that? One would suspect Big Pharma might be something to do with that, and the fact that you know, a lot of people use drugs, pain relieving drugs, and a lot of people use different things but if you can go there and it's like the thing that I did in Russia. Everybody that's going to Russia, nobody's coming back using drugs afterwards.
Interesting. Stephen, is your hair grown back stronger than it was before?
You know that I actually have a video on YouTube. I have a channel. People can subscribe to Stop My PPMS.
Stop my PPMS.
PPMS, yeah. And so I have a bunch of videos on there that I made.
It's not Stop My PMS. That's
a different thing entirely.
It's kind of
Mel Gibson.
Crazy, actually, that channel.
So but on there I have my cure for baldness, which it requires quite a lot of chemotherapy, and then to lose everything, and then you go.
So.
Yeah, but what I've been when you're completely bald and it's beginning to sprout, let's say, what I do is twice a week I rub a mixture, 50-50 mixture of coconut oil and castor oil rub it into the scalp. I even talk to it like you talk to plants. Tell them how much you love them, and coax out those follicles. And there you go. And there you go. There's a result, and there's no cap. You know, it's all.
John must be singing to his hair. It doesn't seem to stop.
I know. Yeah. Well,
there's no monk like. What's the name of that?
The circle thing on the top. I don't know.
Oh God, I'll get it. I'll get the name.
Cap.
No, it's a nice little name for what it is.
Vanessa, you're doing really well with this picture thing. You're really. I think you have it sorted.
I have to talk. I have screen share, but what do I do next, Nick?
No, you just keep on talking, Vanessa, and then it'll stay up.
Okay, so talk to me, lads. We're talking about hair.
Just describe the picture, Vanessa.
Oh, sorry, folks. It is the.
Do you think they're his own horns, or do you think that's an effect of the light at the back? Or?
No, it looks like it's like a trophy or something behind on the mantelpiece. Can you see it, lads? Is it not on the big screen?
Dan, we can see it.
Yeah, whenever you're talking, Vanessa, it comes up on the big screen.
Okay, on the big screen, wide screen.
Vanessa, would you mind me? Look, I don't know who that guy Jim Jeffries. Who's Jim Jeffries?
He's an Australian comedian.
Is he pro-life or?
Well, maybe I didn't ask the man, but.
No, but I mean, is he supporting Justin?
I tell you what, he's possibly got the most famous YouTube clip of every time there's a gun shooting, a multiple shooting in America, it comes up Jim Jeffries. Jim Jeffries is a hell of a comedian, and he's got a lot of big, massive show on HBO in America, and he is a massive comedian. I've tried to book Jim Jeffries many times, and he got out of my price range big time, and the guy is a massive comedian.
This is terrible. I'm very sorry.
Well, I can tell you his original name was Jeff James Nugent.
Our national party.
But Stephen, is he?
No, Jim Jeffries.
Is he as good as Chris Rock, or I mean, is he up that at that level? Or?
Yeah, like a comedy subjective. I've met Jim Jeffries, and I kind of know him. And like I said, I've come very close to booking him, but until he went over a certain amount of money. And but yeah, he's a cool guy, and he's a nice
is he at that level? Is he at that kind of super?
He is in terms of money, American money. He's got a show called Kevin. I think it's called Kevin. Is it like he plays?
Oh, hang on. He's the guy who did the clip on the abortion story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's mad.
John.
Yeah, but he doesn't look.
Think he was there.
But he doesn't look like that. He's obviously stem cells up the wazoo. Between this, I didn't reckon. But okay, now I'm very. What's he doing?
This is what I said. This was the.
What's he doing with the Irish National Party?
What's he doing with Baphomet?
Because he interviewed him as part of the show. The producers obviously, tied them together.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. That was from the John Moynes.
Video, yeah, on Comedy Central. Is that John Moynes' debut on Comedy Central?
It could well be. Just wanted to move on. Oh yeah, sorry, Vanessa, while you're there, the trackers.
Oh yeah, sorry. Can I close down Mr. Squirky now? It's called Mr. Squirky. So can I get rid of this now? Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Horny.
No, I've John.
Jesus.
No, I'm back.
Could you the tracker mortgages as a celebrity accountant? Are you disgusted?
Well, John, why would I be disgusted? I told you there was more to come.
You did. I didn't disagree with you though. I agree.
It's getting you right, Vanessa. It just
No, I think it just gives you a measure of how many tracker mortgages were sold. During the time, and also, and I said it on the show. The reason they've gone, the banks tried to stop them, and by hook or by crook, tried to make money out of them. Is they were bad products because they were never profitable for the bank.
They would have been if the boom had continued.
No, if interest rates in Europe changed, it would have been profitable.
It wasn't the ability to pay. Wasn't it the ability to pay even?
No. I mean, nobody's saying these mortgages are in distress. The number at the moment is 37,100. That's the latest number. But nobody's saying the 37,000 are in distress.
Yeah.
They're just backtracking on everybody that might have been paying an extra 100 or 200 or 50 euro a month.
But what was the thinking, if there was any thinking, in terms of, okay, we're taking these people off their trackers, but surely down the line we're going to get caught. But are they thinking, oh, well, it won't affect my bonus this year, I'll be out of here next? Is that?
Well, I wouldn't like to think that's what they were at, but it puts potentially highly likely that was the decision.
They knew they would be caught. I mean, they couldn't.
Well, you see, it's like all financial services. The idea is to come up with another product. It's like car finance, come up with another product at the end of the car loan, just to keep them in. You know, maybe that was the motivation, that they'd come up with something else to sell them, or to remortgage, or a consolidation loan. Oh, you'll automatically qualify for a consolidation loan. You might get a cashback home loan 10 years down the line, and then we'll consolidate it all and do another thing. Maybe that was the motivation. I don't. It's hard to know. These products were just did not make them money, so they had to find a way to make them profitable, because it was the significant bulk of their loan books.
Yeah,
you'd have to sell a lot more cars.
Yeah, but they're stealing their customers' money. I mean, can I ask you, actually, this week, Ulster Bank, there was money taken from people's accounts. What is that? I mean, how can that happen?
Well, it can be human error, they said, and it all bounced back in. But Ulster Bank seemed to be having a difficulty managing the sort of the IT end of people's accounts.
Yeah.
There constantly seems to be one thing. Remember a while back they were talking about a patch It has to be what that is now. Luke would be your man for that type of thing. And
Yeah.
they obviously, Ulster Bank, I suppose, for a while just were pulling out of Ireland and they just did not invest in their infrastructure here. Now they're back in the market, so they're obviously going to have to pump money back in to investing in their IT infrastructure and their products and their.
Well, yeah, okay, but why would people's money come out of their accounts and presumably we don't know how much was taken?
I think it just didn't show. I mean, somebody got paid, and then it just didn't show they got paid, and DD started coming out.
That money is out there in the ether, isn't it? And it can be moved to Hong Kong for a few hours and make a bit.
Yeah, it's because stagging. That's stagging.
But to see their tracker, their crisis with the tracker. Sorry,
I'm just going to say, John, like an issue such as the money, like just disappearing out of people's accounts. I think that's pretty small scale, and it's more indicative of buggy software and sort of like a low level of tech understanding in the sort of middle to upper management in banking. I mean,
the tracker.
They're not. So, a bit like when Zuckerberg went up, against the Senate, and I mean, he obviously, I mean, if you like the guy, but he knows what he does, and sort of it was you could see a real sort of tech non-tech divide in that he was able to talk rings around them because they didn't know what he was talking about, and I think the same thing is happening in things like banking where you have tech.
There's Johnny Keenan
setting things up.
Then
you have the managers in banks, and they're just like pressing buttons, but they don't really know all that much about how it works.
Yeah, Luke, I want to stop you there because I have a reasonably good point. I just want to make. Johnny Keenan, hello, welcome. Did you heard our plea, our appeal?
You're on mute, Johnny.
Appeal, sorry. Bring back the potatoes.
Bring back Johnny Keenan. Where's Johnny Keenan? We
oh yeah.
You'll
be happy to hear. Sorry to be cutting across you again. I'm coming in the whole time on real good conversation, so I apologize. Nice to see Garland grew a bit of hair anyway. That's a good thing.
He's looking very well, isn't he?
We're coming back. Everybody's saying I'm looking well. I looked fantastic.
Everyone's looking beautiful tonight.
You look very well. You've been on the stem cells, Johnny. That's why you're late tonight.
I got a proverbial haircut. I'd like to have a full.
It's good.
I'll get. You look lovely too.
I'll always look lovely.
Yeah.
Neil, I think your hair is great.
I was actually out today. I don't know if you can see that. United Against Racism in Kilkenny. There was a big meeting. I don't know if you heard on the mainstream. There was a bit of argy-bargy with a meeting there last week in Kilkenny about a proposed mosque. And it kind of went out of control. So we had a kind of reserve meeting tonight, and it was really good, very informative, and a few local politicians and community activists, kind of really good. And I'm eating these amazing. Stephen, you might know exactly what they are. They're kind of battered, but with a little bit of dough in them.
Oh, a kind of Muslim dish, is it?
Yeah, really nice.
Lovely.
So we're talking about one love, unity, and bringing Kilkenny into the 21st century.
The 20th century first now, Johnny. Come on. First things first.
No. We're progressing, John. You should come back with some and really see how we're living now. This multicultural vibe is catching on, and the kids are leading the way because like USA.
Who was fighting?
I believe that children are our future.
Sorry,
Steve?
Who was fighting in Kilkenny? I mean, what was?
Listen, they're always fighting amongst themselves in Kilkenny.
No, I tell you what it was. It was a planning issue really, and it kind of got out of control. The meeting wasn't chaired, and an awful lot of people felt that their community was a mosque was being built without their input. So it was blown out of proportion on the national level. I had a really negative effect on Kilkenny, saying that the Kilkenny is a very racist. The way people like to exaggerate things anyway. I followed
it myself, Johnny, and I think people in Kenny were quite supportive of it. I just think their issue was that it was a bit too close to the graveyard. Is that?
Yeah, but
does that ring true?
Well, no, that's one point, all right, Vanessa, but it's not the point. It was really kind of, they weren't consultated, is basically. And there was the graveyard is a I don't know, it's a not a communal graveyard, but it's not a Catholic graveyard. It's owned by the council, so anyone can get buried there.
Right.
You know, and the thing was that the mosque would be, you know, just vicious shit that they've been by social media. You know, that there'd be no one will be allowed to go hurling training on a Friday, all this kind of crack. You know, just fueling the fire that's already there.
Okay.
Obviously. Okay. But this meeting tonight was very productive. It was almost like
we had the same.
I just had to come back from it, so I apologise. That's why I was late. I was doing a good thing. I was reporting on behalf of the sheet, John, and now I'm reporting back. So
fantastic.
As you were.
Thank you.
And cutting across you.
And Johnny, I got your email with the independence thing, and I was wondering maybe you'll read it off tonight later in the show, yeah?
I don't know, John. It's not worth printing, you know.
Okay.
No, Johnny, sing it out.
Thanks, sir.
Johnny, I felt it was more of a verbal thing. You know, it was like.
All right, Johnny. Yeah, okay, right.
But anyway, give it some thought.
Thanks.
A little bit of thought.
Thanks, I'll do that, yeah.
I just wanted to move on to. I'll go to INM, but INM is now intertwined into the Disclosures Tribunal, and I know that because it's a media story, we're kind of interested in it, but I'm not too sure how much people are widely interested in it. Maybe down the mosh pit, Vanessa, you could tell us what the sweaty bodies are.
It's actually it's very quiet there this evening. There's only 3 people in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We've got 2 Luke Brennans.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
Yeah.
Stem cell, you know?
It's a very successful painting. That portrait. You're really coming on.
Look, you got a darling.
We got
How
more
do you know
Luke
which Luke is?
More Luke
How do you know
Brennans
it's the real Luke?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been training as a magician down here. That's what's going on.
It's very good. Yeah, it was like The Prestige. I don't know if you remember that movie.
I read the book actually.
Oh, okay. Anybody see that? David Bowie was in it. No.
He played Tesla. Yeah.
He did.
Yeah,
With this
Nikolai Tesla. A man who died a virgin.
Bowie.
Wow. No,
Tesla.
well, definitely not Bowie. Tesla died a virgin.
Right.
That's how the story goes.
Oh, did he?
Good to know. Good to know what we remember him for.
Croatian, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Croatian.
Where do you think he found the pent-up energy to create that? I forget. So, Vanessa, no last word on the trackers. Then, will we get over 100,000 tracker mortgage people?
I don't know. I suspect now everybody's tracker has been looked at to see if they could have got more money out of it and see was there a way. Clearly, you know, you were talking about how Ulster Bank took money out of accounts and it's missing. That's more of a, as you say, an IT issue rather than a calculated revisit of a product to try and make it be more profitable against outside of the contract. Do you know what I mean? These were changes to people's mortgage contract without them actually knowing. Well, they eventually found out, but they went and manipulated a contract, obviously illegally because they're now paying back. So the average payout is about 12. I've just worked it out there based on the broad numbers of €12,406 a head. So some people may not have never been in arrears, or so they're getting these windfalls. It depends on the size of the mortgage and how long it was going on for. So I don't think this is going away. I just think it's just going to rumble away in the background over the next few years.
Vanessa, how come the banks won certain cases against these people when they were challenged?
Well, what happens is when they go in the family goes into arrears, and it eventually goes before the county register for hearing, and they're looking for the sum of arrears, and family can't pay, or the mortgage holders can't pay the arrears. So eventually the judge has to sign the possession orders, eventually executed, and the property, or in some cases the mortgage holders may have surrendered the property.
Right.
So eventually, by the time from A to B and the bank, which is a secured creditor, get their security back, which happens to be the property. Whether it's a family home or a buy-to-let, they've got it back, they've sold it.
Okay.
And then now into these investigations say, Judge, that they were actually overcharged the arrears. They were never, then the opportunity to go back, and maybe they could have afforded the mortgage payments.
Yeah.
And they were just pushed over the edge. I don't think that's going to be a significant number. But I think the shocking thing, and where it'll actually get traction, is those that were just paying and paying and paying and paying, but the bank was ripping them off all along. I think those steady customers that never missed a payment or never asked for their mortgage to be renegotiated, but they still screw them. The customers that never as much as even opened their statements.
Yeah,
I think that's where the sort of the groundswell. I think that's the majority of this 37,100 is, and I think that's where the banks will have a very sticky relationship with their customers.
Well, I have to say, I just thought it was hilarious. There was a person on the radio a couple of days ago saying that they had settled with X amount of people, and included in that X amount of people were people who hadn't cashed their checks. So and the reason they gave was, maybe they're not very financially sophisticated. It wouldn't be the case that they're all appealing the amount and that they're not going to accept these what they would regard as derisory figures. Am I right, Vanessa?
Well, I mean, if you look at a family, say for 10 years, we're struggling to pay the mortgage. So the lifestyle in the family were no holidays, no swimming lessons, maybe no private insurance. They really struggled to get that payment out. And suddenly now they've discovered that they were actually paying 110, 120 quid more than they should have been every month. And they're being offered the average payout is 12,000. I wouldn't accept it. I mean, over 10 years is a child start going from school to secondary school.
Their reasoning that these people haven't cashed their checks has nothing to do with that they find it derisory, the amount. But anyway, I think there's so many people.
I think people that don't need to cash the check, I think they should challenge it just because they can, and I think they should. It's a bit like we were saying a few weeks ago to Olga to write a letter to see if any of her data, her emails, she should write, to I&M or to the commissioner to see was any of her data access. I said, well, you're a title writer, I should do it. I think at this stage, people who are on tracker mortgage and they are caught up in this, they've been notified they are. Like I have trackers, and I haven't been contacted to say they made a mickey of it. And if they did, I'd take them to town. I would just totally take the piss out of them.
Well, the tracker scandal reminds me a little bit of the I&M scandal in terms of we just don't know how many people are affected by this data breach.
Well, you do. You can put a cap on it because you can say how many tracker mortgages are registered in Ireland. Because you have to remember, the taxman takes a charge for the mortgage. There's a stamp duty paid on the mortgage. So they'll know how many stamps they collect,
Okay.
They collected during the time these mortgages were written.
Well, certainly, Vanessa, in terms of the I&M data breach, it could
you don't know. You have no clue.
Hundreds of thousands, and there's no.
There's no beginning and there's no end. Well, it begins with 19.
It begins with 19, yeah.
19, and it just goes on and on. A copy of an email, a forward of an email, and a reply to 20 others, and.
Yeah, I just want to. While Olga's there, the I&M are front and center in the next module of this disclosures tribunal.
Yes, so we know, excuse me, we know that Anne Harris, we've known this since last June, by the way, but there was a story in the front page of the Sunday Times just at the weekend, kind of reminding everyone of it. But yeah, so we know that Anne Harris, the former editor of the Sunday Independent, has said that that someone from within INM had made this allegation against Maurice McCabe within the newsroom, and I think called him a paedophile, if I remember correctly. And so this allegation was said, and Anne Harris has told the tribunal this. And we've known, like I said, we've known this since last June.
Yeah.
But according to the Sunday Times at the weekend, the person has spoken to the tribunal and has completely said that they don't remember saying it, and anyway, they deny saying it, absolutely deny saying it. And also they're claiming that Anne Harris has said this as some kind of personal gripe against them. So
Okay.
and I think we're going to see a lot of that actually in the next couple of months. I think there's going to be, there's going to be claims and counterclaims, and then there's going to be claims that things have been done or said because of something completely separate to Maurice, like that they've been hijacking Maurice's story. I think that's going to happen in various situations.
And in terms of the pressure on INM, they are being accused of really, really desperately unethical behaviour in as regards Maurice McCabe. Their executives, some of their executives, heinous, really. And in fact, I mean, I might talk to you after the show actually about something.
Well, yeah, and also I suppose we can't.
But now they have to find the moral high ground to investigate themselves for this data breach. So it's. Yeah. I mean, it's a real mess. It's it's
a proper mess, and it's funny because it's a case of, like, in regards to the tribunal and Maurice McCabe, we know, and we've known since last summer because we've heard the evidence that the only journalist who wrote about Maurice McCabe and Misty was Paul Williams, who was writing for the Irish Independent, and so there's this kind of weird situation going on where we're having a conversation or a discussion, about sources and the protection of sources within INM. And then there's this other conversation going on in the tribunal about sources. Will journalists give up the sources of potentially, of a lie or what has been said? So it's a weird, because you're going to have, so there's kind of a mirror battle going on between, or this discussion about sources. But INM are at centre of both.
Anne Harris said that she didn't regard this as a source as such, because
That's source. Right. She said it. So she named this person because she felt that he was going to be able to perhaps help the tribunal by giving more details of where he got this information or who told him or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think I heard the name this afternoon, and if it's that guy, Jesus, I mean, it's just amazing. And again, it leaves them really very weak in terms of their coverage of their data breach, and in many ways they were like a Vichy style government, like they were pandering to Dennis over the years and really bending over backwards to please him, and this is
appease him. Maybe they were trying to impress him.
Yeah, and also, and it's funny because if you think like that again, if you keep looking at the parallels, like the tribunal, witness after witness has come forward already claiming that that Martin Callan has said X, Y, and Z, and it has to be said that Martin Callan is denying it. But there's 5 people that have said they've witnessed it, and it's on a scale of not to be trusted to him being a kiddie fiddler. But the point is that they heard it, they kind of took it in, and then they could do nothing. I mean, what could they do about it? But it's interesting, kind of that sense of just going okay and muddle on, in the same way with perhaps with certain people high up in INM, where you just kind of went okay and muddle on. Because it's interesting that it was Robert Pitt, formerly of Tesco, who kind of blew the whistle on.
He was like not part
potentially, allegedly, we don't know.
Yes,
what
but
the facts
can
are.
I, John, do you mind there? Robert Pitt. What was this? What was the name?
Robert Pitt.
Robert Pitt. Yeah. You see, Tesco's is a publicly quoted company as well, and they would have very strict compliance and internal audit, internal control, and so he would have been well briefed and well used to very strictly run and regulated internally anyway. so he was used to standards, and he knew when he was uncomfortable. And
well, I suppose if it's true that it was said to him, you're not getting it, lads. I mean,
well, no, you see, it's. I don't even think that's what
triggered him.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
I think it was being told they had to spend 20 million to this person, and we don't even know if this person even knew Robert Pitt's name.
Yeah, Vanessa, can I just stop you there? Stephen and Johnny and Luke and Neil.
Hello.
You're not in the media, so I mean you're involved in promotion, whatever. Neil is an improv maestro. Does this story interest you? The media story with the INM and the data breach, and even their sort of behaviour towards Maurice McCabe.
Well, it's interesting that there's this crossover with the Maurice McCabe thing. I mean, through Broadsheet, I don't think any Broadsheet reader isn't very up to date with what's happening there, and I mean that's at the same time, I mean, well, everyone knows the Independent, and everyone knows how important it is in terms of shaping the Irish psyche. Really, I mean, there's there probably isn't a bigger sort of or more significant way to sort of sway the minds of the Irish than to change things there. So Dennis O'Brien taking ownership of that, that's like a big bold move. And if stuff is happening there that that affects everyone, is my point, and so I think everyone's a little bit interested. Everyone knows that's the case.
Yeah, but I suppose the minutiae is a bit boring. Stephen,
I'm quite apathetic about the whole lot because it's just overkill, and these stories get so developed and they go on and on and on and on. And the Garda, the Gardaí. I know micro stories about the Gardaí, being corrupt within a parish in a small town parish in Ireland, and it's so these things are not a massive surprise. What's happening with Sergeant McCabe? I know the elements of it. I actually know a few people quite close to the case personally, and you kind of. I just stay away from it because it just goes on and it goes layer and layers deeper, and
it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth
all the time. There's a lot of bad news, and to be honest, I find it a little bit overwhelming in Ireland. The weather's bad, killing me at the moment, and then this constant. And I've actually kind of made a decision a couple of weeks back. You know what? I'm going to, I don't stop with the talk to Joe, stop with the depression, stop with all the same topics, again and again, and over analysis of everything.
But
Stephen, sorry,
it's not the right analysis. That's the problem.
Can I just say there, Stephen, just on that point that, isn't it important that we have a sort of an instance here where, deep-rooted, abuse of power. I mean, and it seems it's detailed, and it has to be detailed. And the stuff, the phone calls that are made, the things that are being said, and so many, phones being lost, sort of.
It's shocking. It's all shocking. It's all so shocking and blatant. And Ireland, you just seem to be able to, if you scratch the surface on any of these things, you just unravel a can of worms every time.
But the only way you get rid of it is you get at the root, and this sort of is showing all the roots of that. We
have the root. We have the root now, and we're pulling it up. We're almost there. It's unbelievable how close we are to getting rid of O'Brien, and his ownership of Irish media.
Johnny, how's Jing? Sorry,
I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you.
It is happening, Vanessa. Sorry.
No, I don't think
it's happening. Sorry, it's happening.
Sorry, John. I don't think that man is going to stop or totally dissolve all his media interests.
Okay, right. So here's the thing.
It's a particular area he works well in.
Well,
how is the guy allowed to get away with the monopoly
he makes money there?
Well,
okay, hang on.
This
is what I'm talking about, John. In relation to if you go back to the Jim Larkin and James Connolly at the start of the lockout, who was the guy in charge? It was Murphy. He completely walked all over the blitzkrieg, the working class. Dennis O'Brien is doing exactly the same thing. He's buying up local papers, local radio stations. They're doing nothing for musicians, artists in this country. He's spreading one narrative. That's a monopoly. And to do that in the Republic in 2018 is absolutely chaotic. But everyone is copped onto him now. So if you're pissed off that all this is happening and you had enough of it, this is almost we're winning now. The guy is on his knees. He needs to be got out of it.
Well,
and the Broadcasting Association of Ireland need to be put up on this.
No, I don't think that's going to happen.
I think you're a mile off there.
I don't think it's going to happen. But
is everyone aware that he has a monopoly in the relation to Irish media? Is that a fact?
That's not stopping people. That's not stopping people buying his papers or listening to
every
his
day.
papers.
It kind of is, Vanessa. It kind of is.
But you see, but you know, guys, like the listenership and the number of buyers of the newspapers is dropping. We know that because they've Netflix, there's podcasts, there's people get their news.
Print media is dying.
But all he has to do is invest in content and reinvigorate.
Of course.
Like I'll get quite some time ago. You spoke about the Times.
He said it to Disney,
Irish,
probably like Murdoch.
But Vanessa,
Irish edition.
Irish Murdoch, no?
Vanessa, I don't think you appreciate the challenges he faces in terms of this data breach.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he can't reinvest and completely rebuild any of his titles. August some time ago was talking about the massive resources that the Times, the Irish edition has, and the team they put together there.
Well, no, I think I said I think my point was that it was quite a small unit.
Yeah, but I mean, they've been given the room to create something. Would that be the right way to write?
They've very obviously, just anyone who reads it, they've decided to write about certain stories that other papers haven't been writing about. I think that's
an editorial decision they've made.
Yeah, so
part of their strategy, and there's nothing stopping. And the majority are the largest shareholder, and certainly the owner of a large of other medias. He's got the resources to invest in his titles if he wanted to do that. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm not saying this is going to be a complete.
Vanessa,
this is where there needs to be credibility in relation to journalism in this country and the BAI, the Broadcasting Association.
But it's not just the journalists. It's not. Sorry, guys. It's not just the journalists. The guys at the top, like at corporate level and board behaviour and directors, they have to learn to behave and conduct themselves in a manner that is totally transparent.
Okay, Vanessa, I don't think appreciates the challenges that Dennis O'Brien faces, and I think Johnny, you put your finger on it. I think if the accusations, if the stuff about the data breach, if even a tenth of it is true, I can't conceivably, I can't see how those papers can survive. Frankly, they bug their own people. I mean,
the Irish people are pushed to the pin of their collar. They can't take any more. If he's allowed to get away with this, and he possibly will, because he's the media, he's the media side of Fine Gael. Let's not. There we go. Come on.
Johnny, no, I have to say that because
Yeah, right. Whatever. I'm being what's called that word? Satirical, John. Satirical. I think satirical is you're allowed to be a satirist now these days. But anyway, I just want a democratic society, John.
Yeah, but the thing is, right, that even if it happened, like, so let's say independent news media are in a bad situation. They're what at this stage they're maybe like €100 million company, and Dennis O'Brien is someone who owns several billion in assets. It's a small thing, and what you're saying is that like this teardown of that company is maybe like a 10-year deterioration, but ultimately he can make 10 things that are twice as big if he so chose. It's not I don't think you're seeing the end of anything.
Totally.
Well, no, hold on a second. Can I just interject there, Luke? And like, obviously, someone has so much money in this country, and to consider buying Celtic media. Why do you want to buy Celtic media when you have so much other media? What is that about? Did anyone ever see the film? Did anyone ever see the film Citizen Kane?
Yes,
That's all I'm saying.
He wants to buy
Sometimes
it.
people don't have enough power.
He wants to buy it because he can.
Yeah, well, that's when the Broadcast Association of Ireland come in, or the ombudsman, or the regulator. Sorry, we do. This isn't democracy. You can't have any more. That's
but
it.
they
That's
did.
it.
They did. They tested it, and they said, "Go on, off you go. Good luck to you."
Keep testing it.
Pat Rabbit, who was
Keep a
complaining
good eye on him. That's what I'd be doing if I was in
about
regular.
Dennis, was the one who gave his blessing. The problem hasn't really been Dennis. I mean, it has been a huge problem. The Irish Independent over the last 6-7 years has just been extraordinary. Like, do you know what it's been like? It's like watching one of those the Late Late Show Country and Western edition.
Oh my God!
Last week,
Oh, Luke.
That that their heart isn't really, but they know that this stuff is.
But that John, that speaks to what I was saying. About like the directors, they should have behaved better. They should have performed better.
But not only that, I think John,
the managers and editors in there should have performed better.
But John, I think also you mentioned, I think was it maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago now, and you said you mentioned people who kind of facilitated this or enabled him, or maybe just didn't cry stop when they possibly should have. And Justine McCarthy, if you remember, she wrote a piece in the Sunday Times. Was it 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago? And it was excellent. And it was pretty much echoing that, or along the same lines anyway. And just talking about all these different instances of Mr. O'Brien being in certain things, like if you remember when he was at the stock exchange with Enda Kenny in New York, and all these different instances, and it was interesting. On the same day, Tom Lyons had a piece in the Sunday Business Post, and it stood out. Remember, we were talking about it, and he had this piece in the Sunday Business Post where he talked about a particular article that was in the Sunday Times edition, the English edition of the Sunday Times, but it wasn't in the Irish edition, and it talked about his debt and his loans.
Yeah.
And
it was the first time. It
was the first time, yeah. And because remember, we did a post on it. We were like, why isn't this in the Irish edition? And funnily enough, we were told via Twitter that it was kind of Dennis 101. Forget about it. Everyone knows this. It's actually in a book, and it was said that it was in a book by Tom Lyons, and
I'd read the book.
It wasn't in his book. Yeah, I read the book exactly, and it wasn't.
It did an index, but I'd read it.
Yeah. And it wasn't in the book. And
sorry, it was or it wasn't in the book. It
wasn't in the book. So
wasn't in the book.
See, what we're saying
basically
is
there was this.
It wasn't just I&M. It was outside. There were a lot of.
I do imagine there's a lot of mezzanine debt there as well. But any analyst will get you that. If you know anyone in Davies or Marion or anywhere, they'll get you that.
Get to what? Were you listening to what we just said?
No, but if it's traded information.
No. This is so basically, Vanessa. This is a story that was about his loans, and it was about his purchase of shares in I&M, and it was the first time it was published, and it was in the UK edition of the Sunday Times, and it wasn't in the Irish edition. And funnily enough, there was a story about Dennis O'Brien, if I remember correctly, and Bill Clinton and Haiti, a positive story, and I remember who wrote it and everything. But that was in the Irish edition of the Sunday Times. But what we're saying is
instead
that
of his debt profile.
Well, yes, and
let's just call it his borrowings. He
said that he owed about 150. 100, no, it was
more, but
$500 million. It was 450 million.
Yeah, it was almost 500, wasn't it? Yeah. So, but the point.
But if he's able to pay it back, you see, it's not debt if he's able to service it. So be careful there, folks.
Yeah, but the point is that the story was. Yeah, but the point is that the story wasn't in the Irish edition. This is our point, and we were asking why it wasn't.
And we were told that it was in.
That's
Tom
Dennis 101. It's in Tom Lyons' book.
But it wasn't in Tom.
And it wasn't.
And it just.
And I don't think Tom Lyons is at the Sunday Times at the time. Actually, sorry to keep going.
No, it's fine. I just want to clarify it, because it doesn't need to be.
It wasn't. Can I just say that if that's the case,
Luke.
I mean, it doesn't mean that, sort of like that's the reason. It means that, it wasn't there. But wouldn't this sort of thing be a sort of shot across the bows of, sort of Dennis O'Brien by, sort of Rupert Murdoch? And I'm sure they have their own little sort of petty war going on.
No, Luke, you're getting it wrong. There was Irish journalists were enabling the Dennis O'Brien thing, and they seem to be the first in the queue now to, the king is dead. These guys were like gloating, when we were threatened with legal action. We were from Dennis O'Brien, like gloating in print. Another fellow journalist. But there was such a macho thing around the whole Dennis O'Brien story, and things like that were just outrageous. The write-off for SideServe, the money for the SideServe directors, who had just walked away from a 45 million law, and then the water meter contract. Come on, it got so ridiculous. But each time there were the Bruce Arnolds, people like that coming out. Of all the people, Bruce Arnold, who was bugged himself back in the early 80s, coming out to support Dennis continuously, and it was ex-journalists who are now PRs and whatnot. We just lost minutes there. Sorry, Olga.
Yeah, so the reason I'm saying that is that it's just quite funny where we are at now. Like I'll always remember when Dennis O'Brien's face, I think, was on the first. I think it was the first poster I saw during the water meters protests, the very early water meter protests in Dublin City, and I remember thinking, this is really funny. There's a picture of Dennis O'Brien in a water meter protest thing, and yet people who maybe watch RTE or read certain newspapers must go, why is Dennis O'Brien on the protest placard? I don't know, what's the connection? So anyway, I just think it just goes to the business of it being enabled. It wasn't just I&M. I think he was enabled by others, and obviously there were standout journalists like Tom Lyons, Mark Tighe, Justine McCarthy. But I think if someone was to go back and look at who was writing about him and who wasn't writing about him, it would just make for interesting reading.
I don't mind even that, because mortgages or whatever, But don't be now the ones who are like, oh, we're so bravely going after Dennis. You got Irish Times journalists. The Irish Times accepted Dennis O'Brien's version of the Constitution, as opposed to the Constitution.
But John, I don't see anyone really going after him in any of the mainstream. When the papers come up there, let's see how many Dennis O'Brien stories.
Well, no, you've got this sort of like, they'll do overkill now, in terms of going.
But I'm not seeing it, John. I'm not seeing it or hearing it anywhere other than here.
Well, the Irish Times have now covered the Dennis.
I think Broadsheet should go Broadsheet
in a kind of a joyful way, in a very sort of exultant, But when it mattered, they didn't stand up to him at all. They capitulated, like they did with Terry Prone. So don't come. You're the tough guys. You're the brave journalists. Et cetera, et cetera. When it mattered, you weren't there.
John, you kind of asked a question to us earlier on, and I've been listening quite patiently. As in, to us simple lay folk on the panel who know nothing about journalism, and you said, do we care? And I think this discussion has highlighted that this issue, this story, exactly as it is. There's two sides to it. There's the inside circle, which is those who are au fait in journalism and have their finger on the pulse. And then there's a story to us lay folk. And to folks like us, Dennis O'Brien is a businessman. And we don't know the inner workings of journalism and the relationships that are there. And that's the story we see. And if the stories if the media isn't covering the story to the length and to the level of detail, and I guess that you guys can join the dots as journalists, then we don't see that side. We don't read that side. And what might seem very obvious to yourself and Olga may not be so clear to us, because we don't know how each of those dots are joined up. And I think it's a story that will eventually blow over. And business is business. And Dennis O'Brien is a businessman, a very clever businessman, a very successful businessman, and very resilient. And as Vanessa said, whether the media thing works out, whatever he touches next will no doubt turn into gold. and I'd say that's the reality of it.
Hear that?
He was
I-
he was a lobbyist, and he was also given contracts by a Fine Gael government. So not many businessmen are that lucky in politics. Neil. So, as someone who is trying to find their way through this country, I rely on the media to give me that information. So I'm trying to listen to radio. I'm trying to read newspapers. I'm trying to read online. And if one guy controls all that, it's not business that how he controls that. He's part of the establishment, and I don't give a Highlander fuck if that is politically correct or whether someone's going to. That is what I see, and so it's nothing to do with business. It's one guy having the establishment media.
Johnny,
That's it.
Johnny, our point is that that wouldn't be so bad.
So it's quite bad. Is that not quite bad now?
Terrible, Johnny. Wait. You haven't. I'm making a kind of point.
Okay.
That wouldn't be so bad if the Irish Times, RT, would stand up to this guy, or at least sort of take him on in some kind of way. But they didn't. They backed down. They lay down. In fact, I'm absolutely more convinced than ever that there was a non-aggression pact. I know I said this last week. Non-aggression pact between the INM and RT. It's really just unreal.
a bit like Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, the Competence and Supply Agreement.
I completely, yeah, that's exactly the analogy that I would make.
Can I put
I'm not into this great businessman either, like Michael O'Leary. They have no respect for their employees. I don't call that good business. No, sorry. Like, you know, that's the people that's involved in this are people that's trying to do their job with integrity and credibility. And there's too much admiration for the Dennis O'Briens and Michael O'Learys in this country. I'm not having it. I don't like that kind of business.
I think
it's not true Irish business.
Yeah,
it's an American model of business. It's not Irish.
The days when Neil used to say Mick O'Leary should be running the country are long.
I won't have a bad word said about Michael O'Leary.
But,
he's one of my heroes.
Well, I wouldn't call him a hero, but I'd respect what he's done.
Sorry, Johnny.
Good enough. Well, I respect it. I disagree.
Well, I tell you what. We'll wait and see. Is he hacking anybody? Is Ryanair hacking anybody's emails? Or moving data or influencing his board?
This is all allegedly.
Well, let's theory though. I mean, is there any suggestion that Michael O'Leary has removed data, is not GDPR compliant, has attempted to influence directors, independent non-executive directors of any organisation he's involved in?
Michael's all right.
Don't even think he's even ever had a qualified audit report. So anyway, one thing I just want to leave a nugget out there. Maybe the chat pit could pick it up, or
okay.
any of the lawyers. All I want to say is that I wonder, is there?
Vanessa, just that stuff you said there. That's all allegedly or whatever.
About Michael O'Leary.
Or were you talking about Michael? What?
Yeah, I was talking about Michael O'Leary.
You were saying that he was doing up to all that stuff?
No, I said I haven't heard he is.
No.
Okay.
So for Johnny to be comparing the two gentlemen.
I think. Hold on a second. I think it's fine. No. Hold on a second, Vanessa. I said in relation to the admiration that's shown to these guys as businessmen. I don't see that in relation. It's an American style of business that people are falling over themselves.
Yeah, but Johnny,
that's new to Ireland. So don't misrepresent me there.
No, but I mean, if more business people mirrored Michael O'Leary's record in terms, like I said, I don't know of any story. I don't know of any story or inclination or whisper or rumor that data has been removed from any company he is a shareholder in. Or I don't know of any story. So my point is, in terms of in terms of corporate governance, there might be something to
Vanessa, nobody is saying that. Like, nobody is saying that, except you now. Nobody's saying that about Michael O'Leary.
No, I'm just saying it's worth, maybe he's not everyone's cup of tea, but there are some times that maybe he's worth looking at a bit closer in terms of this is the way I want my companies to run.
Yeah, well, sure. We're getting very close to that, Vanessa. We are the 51st state of America, and that kind of business model we're looking at and we're loving. But the idea of respecting employees and actually building social housing, and I just want to hit this point again. I'm sick of this fucking bullshit of keep the recovery going. Keep the recovery going, John. And when people are on zero-hour contracts, and if you're on the scratcher and you get an extra €20 for digging a few shrubs for the local community tidy towns, it's pathetic in relation to the manipulation of facts when it comes to people working. There's no one. The unemployment in this country.
Johnny, I think it's a bit of a leap to kind of jump to the idea that this is somehow American influence.
Yeah, it's 100% American influence because
I live in Granard, Johnny, where the most famous thing and the biggest industrialist that we ever had in all my life is Pat the Baker, kind of well known in the country. Yeah. He's a man who fought the unions out of the yard. All his
Pat the strike breaker.
Pat the strike breaker. And he did that. So that's he's an entirely Irish businessman who ran an entirely Irish business in a small town. He's famous for being the guy who rocked into town with no arse in his trousers and became Pat the Baker and all the things. But it ain't he's an Irish. I think it's more Irish than anything. I don't know what, and Irish possibly gave this to America and not the other way around. And that's what
absolutely, because the first unionized employer here was Ford's.
Yes. Yeah. And so look, it's nothing to throw it back out. Our Irish employers have had their up to their necks.
Like the Paddies have been trying to rip each other off for centuries.
So IT didn't even.
That's only recent, Johnny.
Yeah, exactly. So why are we all of a sudden an IT? I'm talking about rural Ireland, Stephen. I went to see an activist in the back arse of Wexford there the other day. Stephen Kavanagh, he's probably looking, a real sound guy. I couldn't even get the connection on my mobile phone, a Vodafone signal. I couldn't even get that. Least of all, he can get Wi-Fi. And they talk about Ulster Bank and the way they're treating their customers. The rural Ireland, what exactly is happening, Stephen? Okay, so what I'm saying to you is the attitude of big business. They have the American attitude. It's no coincidence that Dennis O'Brien is very good friends with the Clintons as well. Okay, so it all goes back to 1995. If you actually have a memory in relation to how we are, where we are now.
Okay. Johnny, this is.
John, I'm not going off my point. What I'm saying is that this country is under a different way of thinking, and I prefer the Irish model than the American one, and that's all I'm saying. And I was trying to give examples there.
No, it's fair enough. I think.
Sorry, can I just kind of go back to the I mentioned there? I just want to kind of leave a nugget out with you or the chat bit or on the.
1 second, Vanessa. I just want to go to the.
Third time you stop me.
Yeah, but Vanessa, you can't say you don't have enough airtime, because you do. I always give you loads of time, and sometimes
that's not what I was going to say, John. But that's fine.
Okay. Well, now you see you get upset, and I don't want to get you upset. I have
to. Not upset. I just wanted to put it out there. Was there any appetite in business?
Now you won't.
An ethics officer.
Now you're still gonna. You won't let me go to the papers.
Now there's a woman out there in Clontarf.
Olga, can we have a look at tomorrow's papers?
Olga.
Thanks.
Yeah. So.
Vanessa, you can look to heaven for all you like.
I'm looking at the papers, John.
Oh, can I have a big hello to Shayna, who's in the chat pit, I gather, among the sweaty bodies in the chat pit. Vanessa's now sulking, so she won't tell me what's going on in the chat pit, but that's okay.
I told you Shayna was in the chat pit, John, so stop. Actually, JDF Reality, as usual, has come out with a great point about if Cosby, if a great man like Bill Cosby can be taken down, then anyone can. So maybe Redacted will get what's due. The chat pit is open to everybody, and I'm not sulking, John, at all. I'm reading the newspapers here on the main board.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, we're not comparing, by the way, Dennis, with Bill Cosby in any way whatsoever, etc., etc. Everything's allegedly, apparently. Sorry, Olga.
Okay, so this is the Examiner. So the top story there by Rory Giblin: gangs of burglars who target vulnerable in rural areas face up to 14 years in prison.
Can't see the papers there.
Oh, can you not?
Top story is Tom Waits, John. Forget about that.
Can you not see it? No.
You can see it now.
No,
Oh, sorry. Okay. The story there on the left, up to 200 may have had cancers missed. So this is on the back of the Vicky Phelan story during the week about. So we know about her. She had a smear test and anyway went undetected. So she was given 6 to 12 months to live in January of this year. But basically, so now this is a story about Daniel McConnell and Catherine Shanahan. Up to 200 women who later developed cervical cancer had the same missed smear test as Vicky Phelan. It was admitted tonight. So in the wake of the Phelan case, Health Minister Simon Harris yesterday ordered cervical check to write to the doctors of the women to ensure they communicated the error where cancer indicators were missed. Yeah, because I think it only kind of emerged yesterday or last night that it suddenly emerged that that cases where there was a mistake or something that went undetected, that it wasn't really known whether the women were told or not. So now
that was an American company, was it?
That's right. Yeah, it was the Clinical Pathology Laboratories Inc. in Austin, Texas, that was involved in Vicky Phelan's case. So
okay, you've got a minister wants a dedicated phone line for mental health.
Yeah, Jim Daly, Fine Gael TD, Lane Loughlin, Caroline Doherty story there. Yeah, so a dedicated mental health phone line similar to the 999 system is to be established by the end of the year. This is a promise.
Yeah,
so, an election promise, I guess.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah.
This is
a big thing on RT during the week. I think it was a big thing tonight, so they'll be talking about it for the next 3 days.
Okay.
We had that charity that went under. What was it? The mental health charity.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's something. Okay.
The guy was in Beslan, wasn't he?
Sorry. Oh,
Console.
Is this John?
Yeah.
How's he getting on, I wonder? Sorry, Olga.
No, you're okay.
What happened to that dude?
You see, Olga has to be talking for the paper to stay up.
Oh yeah, I have to keep talking for it to be shared. Sorry, lads. But yeah, there's a story there in the front at the bottom of the Examiner, along the bottom of the page. Bill Cosby, so he was found guilty of drugging and sexually assaulting a woman. So that's him. And I'll just find the other papers now. Sorry. So the Times edition is also, if I remember correctly, looking at the smear tests. Yeah. So more legal cases over cancer test failures. 200 women may be unaware of false results. So 2 more women with cervical cancer who were given the all clear after smear tests are to begin legal proceedings, as it emerged that up to 200 women may not have been informed. Okay, so 2 women have definitely taken legal action. And again, this is on the back of Vicky Phelan's story. So
it's horrific, isn't it?
Absolutely horrific, yeah. So
another tribunal as well, presumably.
Probably, yeah. The Bill Cosby, picture of Bill Cosby, Bray sanctioned for missing state funds with Paul O'Donoghue. Bray Wanderers has been sanctioned by the government after an investigation found that tens of thousands of euros in state grant funding was unaccounted for. So the Department of Sport began an inquiry into the club more than 2 years ago over apparent irregularities in the claiming of more than 450,000 euros for work at the club's grounds. So I don't know what that's about. As in, I've never heard that story before. So,
Bray,
there's that.
Bray is the home to Niall Murphy and Aaron McAlorum. Bray is our spiritual home, I guess.
We get Aaron on the story.
Okay.
And then
that's a shocking story. Is there anything on the Sun?
The Sun, Docs will try to wake Sean by Gary Maneely. So this is the Liverpool fan, Sean Cox. Earlier this week, there was so he's in an induced coma, And so there's the story of Liverpool fans, Sean Cox's family must wait until Monday to see if he comes out of an induced coma. Cops said the dad of 3 from Dunboyne, County Meath, had a severe bleed in the brain after being bashed before the Roma match on Tuesday. 2 Italians appeared in court yesterday over the sickening attack on Sean.
Incredibly sad that I hope he pulls through.
You know, at a match.
Yeah, gosh, absolutely.
Sorry, is there anything on the Guardian?
This is interesting here, the 2 ladies.
Who are
Yes.
In this story?
That girl's from Wexford, by the way.
Can
You lie down with the devil in the DUP, and it's going to go pear-shaped.
No, well, that's. Sorry, were you looking at the Guardian? Are you looking at the Guardian? Yeah, that's Ruth Davidson, who won Bake Off, Celebrity Bake Off.
Oh, is it?
That's her fiance partner. She's from Wexford. That girl.
Jan Wilson. Oh, is she?
Yeah.
So
Davidson's
Davidson is the leader of the Scottish Conservatives.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that girl is from Wexford.
Okay.
Right, okay.
The other girl, okay.
Okay. Which girl is from Wexford? The one on the left.
Yeah, the girl in the red jacket is Ruth Davidson, who's head of the Scottish Tory Party.
Yeah.
And is the girl from Wexford? Is she's not in politics though? No.
No, I think she might be working in marketing or.
Oh, okay.
PR or something like that. But the reason I know she's from Wexford was because on the telly she was making a cake tour, and it was all about Wexford strawberries.
Oh, lovely.
Oh.
Vanessa, what was the nugget you wanted to tell us?
No, it was just that I think it's time to start looking at a role in companies and organizations that have a certain amount of public interest, whether they get tax relief or whether they're limited guarantee companies and stuff like that, of having a role of an ethics officer. This is compliance would come in under that, but sometimes ethics.
Johnny looks very convinced there.
Yeah, sorry, Vanessa.
Well, no, I
something that's very popular over in America.
Yeah, well, I don't know how the function works in America, but I certainly have to do so many hours of ethics training every year.
Really?
Yeah, I have to do. I have to do 1 hour with the Institute of Bankers and an hour with and I have to do another few hours with for ACCA. So it's probably a function that might have oversight even at board level. You know, you could be supervisor at board, and if you're uncomfortable, you might say, you know, bring in training and things like that. But I think it's probably something to start looking at in how Irish businesses function.
But you know what worked there, Vanessa, and it worked. You put up in the sheet, John. And I think you asked, "What's the story with the music?" the woman from the regulation,
yeah,
the central bank, and the lenders. We will be putting pressure on the lenders to pay back what they owe to the customer. And all the time this was going on, you had little elevator lift, and you're going, what the? That was the question. What's the story with the music like? Forget about what you're trying to say. Just trying to give us the information, but there has to be this really sad music. It's like Stairway to Heaven or something, or The Incredible Hulk when your man Bill Bixby is hitching at the end of the show.
Neil, sorry, Luke.
It was a little bit like if aliens.
That's ethics. That's the very good ethics.
If aliens landed and they wanted to sort of calm us down and give us their message, it seemed a little bit like.
Oh, the video.
They've landed in Porto.
But sure, I mean, the central bank have a function there of insisting people get their money back.
Yeah, but the music wasn't necessary.
But who put the music over?
It had a bed. I don't know. It was the central bank released.
Bullshit. That's the new PR crap that they go on with. One crowd does it, and then everyone else. And you know what it is? It's that kind of music that doesn't have any kind of royalty payment.
It's the world's tiniest.
I think if they use 6 seconds and they loop it, they don't have to pay royalties. So once again, the artist is being shit on. But any credible artist that would give their music to the likes of the Bank of Ireland or the Central Bank isn't an artist anyway. So
I just want to apologize for the language. I know that some children are watching. Sadie is probably watching. Neil, are you
Mr. Professional, John?
Neil, are you babysitting while people are out having tapas and?
I'd no late night tapas for me.
You look like you're in the same room as in the Mullingar.
You can't afford to go to Spain. You're spoofing now. You just have.
I do games
It's a bit like the moon landing, John, isn't it? He's only pretending he's not in Spain at all.
It's the Spanish room.
He's hiding out. He's hiding out in the other room there with Stephen.
Yeah,
this is a
orange
cry for
curtains,
help.
it doesn't
Come
matter
rescue
if you're
me.
in Spain.
Come look at these curtains. Come rescue me.
He's afraid he's going to get caught. He's hiding behind the curtains.
Neil, how did Sadie the traveling and all that? No problem.
She was like there's a photograph. I can't show it to you now because of low tech, but she was like a dream on the plane. She's better than me at flying, that's for sure.
She
But
was asleep.
this semi-drunk man came up afterwards and was collecting the bag off the carousel to say, "You should go into that Aer Lingus office." That she was so well behaved.
That she what?
She was so well behaved for a baby on a flight. She thinks I deserve the medal.
Oh.
That's fantastic.
I think you deserve a medal.
Yeah, but because normally babies would be crying and
Yeah, it wasn't
wetting themselves, and that's usually how.
None of that. That was just me and all the stags and the hens on the plane.
In other words, you were the one doing the drooling and she wasn't.
Was that a
I was
Michael
looking at
O'Leary?
that wing.
Okay,
That's a Michael O'Leary flight this time. No,
If
it was too expensive.
If you want to take part in the next week's, would you be up for that next week? Doing an 8th Amendment special, Olga?
Sure, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but what if you have a shift in town?
Yeah, I will have a shift actually next Thursday.
Okay. Well, when the next
I've got moves.
Yeah.
No.
Actually, what I was going to suggest for his show there was that Stephen set an agenda because he was kind of commenting there about there was no fun, it was the same stuff all the time in Ireland and the newspapers and stuff. And I said, why doesn't he set the agenda for the show? So why don't we have a show that is totally Stephen Garland? We want to talk about this, and this, and stick to that.
Continental.
Stephen, I have a question for you. Actually, I was wondering, like,
Even give us a continental.
like with the treatment, would you not have held out a few months and got like the World Cup out of it?
Too expensive for my team of carers, unfortunately. So it wasn't an option.
You'll have an additional bit of sort of interest in the World Cup now when you see it. You'd be sort of that's close enough to where I was. And
You know, I had a company and called Host City Booking. I've let the site lapse, but basically I set it up during the Brazilian World Cup. I was out there for that World Cup, and so I did a lot of business in that World Cup with African. I was in Natal in the northeast of Brazil, and you had teams like Ghana. And who else did we have? We had USA, and we had a bunch of, there was teams in that host city. And so I made a killing out of Kenya and a few different African nations. And so I thought, create host city booking. And my idea was to extend it out as far as Russia. And and do Olympics, another host city. So that's what I've been, that was my plan, was to find myself in Russia doing client services and on a complete, fly on the fly type of doing my own thing, and it's a bit.
You found yourself there for altogether other reasons.
Yeah, but it's amazing. I could still pick up the phone to dudes in Kenya that want to go to Russia, and I've got like you could do. I never sold a thing. It's just online marketing. And and I managed to build it in Brazil, and unfortunately I let it lapse now. But Russia was on part of the plan.
Stephen, if you can find a sponsor, you can be our World Cup correspondent.
You know, it's Russia. I would say. Moscow is just such an awesome city, and I really wish I got my. I'd really like to have to be involved in something like that. And my wife who was literally in this room tonight. I kind of said to her, said, "Come on, well, you're not." She was working protocol in Brazil which is the last World Cup. So I said, "Would you not? Let's get a job in Russia. Come on." So she said, "No,
Stephen, I think we've just had a phone call from both the Irish Times and Michael O'Leary, who are willing to sponsor you.
Let's all go to Russia."
Michael O'Leary's first trans-Serbian flight.
It's not the most expensive place to go to, guys. Only €200, and one of the most.
Russia.
Yeah, €250 you get at different times of the year, and couldn't recommend Moscow. Moscow's one of and St. Petersburg. I've been in before. This is an amazing country, and we get a very slanted view about what Russia is on this on this side of the world, and what's going on at the moment with all this nerve agent nonsense. Do you believe Boris Johnson about all this crap? And
no.
Certainly, yeah. So certainly, and we put up with the Tories bullshit in this country for how long? And so certainly, Putin is no angel or whatever. But there is it is the biggest country in the world. It's 10 time zones wide. It's got 200 million people. Ireland is, you're sticking it up in the corner of it and forget about it. But so Putin, what he did when the wall came down, and you need to look at the history of Putin to kind of understand that he is a democratically elected leader. And while I was in the hospital in Russia, he was doing his press conference to the 10 time zones. And so that thing went on for hours and hours and hours. Now, so you can buy into the narrative that that's all completely.
He does a phone in, doesn't he?
He does a phone in. He's got a live audience of. So you can believe if that is all completely constructed, and it's an incredible technical kind of feat to do a live press conference 10 time zones. And so it's a big deal. And he spoke, and he was on going for 4 hours, about 4 hours there. And to be honest, this is one impressive fucking leader. I've lived in Brazil. Brazil is a mess, and Brazil desperately needs a Putin. Putin is in there because Yeltsin had the world's biggest country in a joke, and the Russians know that. And there was no food in the shops. There was none of this.
He fell asleep, Shannon, sure.
Yeah, exactly. And the Irish dance, the river dance was waiting for him and all that,
Yeah.
And Albert, it's an insult. The whole of Longford turning, watching that crying, we were torn apart.
Yes. Sam Smith was there as well.
Stephen, thank you so much. Johnny, your Independence Day pronouncements, will we leave it till next week?
Well, just to acknowledge that Ireland doesn't seem to have a recognised Independence Day. Some people think Paddy's Day is the National Day of Ireland. It's like only 2 years ago the whole country was trying to get our sense of culture and history, and it was when the proclamation was read outside the GPO. I would consider Republic Day or Independence Day. Some other people think the 21st of January, that's the date of the treaty. But I think 24th of April is a nice day to remember the great Irish patriots that went before us. And if we are to take kind of comfort or solace in relation to Ireland moving forward, I think, it's good to recognise the 24th of April as being a date for the calendar. It's never going to happen as long as there's a Fianna Gael or Fianna Fáil government that it will be recognised as Independence Day. But I wrote a piece about just on and I don't know if it go down too well, but
maybe
if you want to put it up in the street.
Yeah, will I'll post it maybe tomorrow, will I, Johnny?
Yeah, whatever you feel like, John.
Yeah, because I think it needs a bit of time. It's a good 3-4 minute thing. It's like a. So I'll put it up tomorrow, and will you read it out next week? Would that be okay?
I read it out, John. It's not. I'm not really happy with it. As I said, I just wrote it because I wanted to write it because it was anniversary. I'm very cynical about anything I write anyway because I don't really write. But if you feel that it's worth reading, I'll read it definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've kind of left it a little bit too late now for it to be read. So next week. Thanks, Johnny.
Happy Independence Day.
I like the 21st of January idea because you really need a holiday around sort of late January.
Yeah.
So sorry, we have Little Women's Christmas, New Year's Eve, Little Women's Christmas, and Independence Day.
Yeah, but nobody.
Then Valentine's Day.
Little Women's Christmas is a disgrace. Nobody. I mean, it hasn't got the prominence that it deserves. We've discussed this before.
Hashtag
well, I'd be afraid to interrupt you, John. So.
Oh. Neil Curran, very quiet tonight. Brilliant production work from Spain. Thank you very much. And to Sadie. Oh, Johnny, good night to Jinx.
Yeah, thanks. Jinx, good night.
She jumped down earlier. Olga Cronin at the street. Thanks so much.
Night,
the tribunal begins again.
It was supposed to start on Monday, but it's not anymore. It'll be on Wednesday and Friday. And by the way, just for one little detail, I think Martin Callan is down for 5 days. It's worth knowing.
To be questioned for 5 days. Wow.
Yeah. I look forward to that one.
Is there a public gallery on that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a public gallery throughout it all, Stephen. Yeah.
Well, we might get good seats. No, but you see, there's loads of I had loads of
look at you.
Familiar faces there. Stephen, have you got a wheelchair ticket? You know.
No, I'm not that disabled. I don't qualify. They turn me
down.
down.
They'd bring us up the side, up the front, if we had.
I have a stick.
How is your mobility?
It's all right, it's got better, but I have a stick, so the damage done is still the damage done. But the idea is I went there to stop the progression. So, and that's apparently what we've done. So
well, you really look fantastic, Stephen. It's fantastic.
You're a great humor.
Hopefully see you here next week, and think about the Russia thing.
Yeah.
But why don't we all go? If it's only 200 quid, John, splash out and bring us over.
I'm actually we're making a bit of a doc, and we're going to go back there. So we'll be we're going back with a crew. So you'll see a bit of stuff. I'm taking a show back to Edinburgh. I did last year. I went to Edinburgh with a show called The Predisposed. This year is the sequel, The Post Disposed. So that's going to go down in Edinburgh, part of the Free Fringe. Haven't got dates or anything like that, but I'll let you know. Brilliant. And then we're going to go out and tour. I'm the headline show in the Longford Arts Festival called Cruhu. Cool little festival.
Are you in the Longford Slashes Theatre?
Absolutely. Backstage.
No, the one Albert built.
Yeah, it's a nice theatre, man. So I'm delighted to be there. And
I'd love to go. That's definitely on our list, Neil.
Yeah,
Longford Slashes Theatre.
It'd be a good night, and it's my home crowd,
Oh yeah, of course.
And
they're the toughest, are they?
They're the toughest. Well, this is not what I do, man. I'm not a performer. And
well, you are, Stephen. I think that is
it's becoming by default,
Yeah. Do you know, Stephen? I'm going to hold you to setting an agenda for us some evening, and it's just Steve Garland's agenda, or.
Yeah, which would be a very skewed political, fast, maybe.
Doesn't matter. It's like improv. You throw it out and we'll see how we get on.
Neil's the man for that. So we have professionals on the case. So I think bring Luke in, and we have the lay, as they became known today, the lay pundits. Or I don't know, are we pundits or what are we? And the lay humans and the journalists, and so we can. Maybe construct a show about the juxtaposition of those two types of humans.
There you go. Look, he has a
program.
He's got a program developed already.
A good night to Jinx.
Can I just say, John, that Jinx is waving there? He's not giving a Nazi salute or anything.
Yeah, be careful now.
He's so gorgeous.
Yeah, but
if you can sing with him, he'll sing.
Okay, let's sing a song. Come on, start something.
You have to sing as well.
Oh, he's yawning.
He's yawning. Let him go to bed, Johnny. The poor dog. Abuse.
Vanessa, you interrupted him.
Giving him dogs abuse.
Yeah. Just tell him he's the best dog in the world.
Boom, Luke.
You have to tell him he's the best dog in the world.
You're loving that. You're loving that one.
Okay.
You can go home now, Luke. After
this
that,
one.
that's smashed.
You
That's
see,
smashed.
John has a snot on because his mammy gave out to him for not telling me about the lipstick on my teeth last week.
Okay.
She did.
So
Yeah, she
it's
said.
no big deal to have a song sing on cue anymore, is it not?
Go on, what do you want us to sing?
He's the best doggy in the world.
Oh my
What
God.
does that sound like?
Johnny,
Come on.
bring out
He's the best doggy in the world.
He's the best doggy in the world. He's the best doggy in the world.
Okay, that's me.
We should send him. We should send him to Eurovision. We should send him to Eurovision.
On that bombshell.
Yeah, buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Thank you so much. Hopefully,
Good night. Good night.
Very,
on the site
Buenas
tomorrow.
noches, Carlos, huh?
looking up the rebels.
A big thank you to Neil Curran for producing
Doggy in the
it,
world.
seemingly horizontally, lying down. Thanks so much. See you on the site tomorrow. Hopefully, or here.
Night, everyone.
Good night. Good night, Jinx.